Devlin, Untamed. The platform.
Welcome to the podcast, people. Martin Devlin, Lachlan War, iOS, It's Only Sport. That's the name of our daily radio show, the only true independent sports program in this country, 1 till 4 on the platform. But if you can't join us live, well, this is the next best thing. This is a highlights package of condensed news, views, interviews, bit of ranting, bit of raving. Talking through the day's sporting news and issues. Rugby, the All Blacks after the first 3 tests. Where are we at? All Black legend Murray Mexted was on the program to discuss, with particular reference to the loose forwards, his area of expertise. What is our best combo? Have we even seen them yet? All of that with the Mex. Le Tour de France, amazing performance by the winner Tadej Pogačar yesterday, his 3rd win in 5 years. Bigger, stronger, faster they go. But is it clean? Are all the athletes on the straight and narrow? A man called Adam Becket from Cycling Weekly, the news editor of, joined us on the program. He spent every single day on the tour, following it around all 21 days, talking about the performance of Pogačar, plus are the athletes all clean? Tiger Woods, another dismal, abysmal performance at another major. It was disastrous for Tiger, 14 over after 2 rounds. Should he retire? Was Colin Montgomery right? And who does get to decide? Well, it's him and only him, isn't it? Graham Agars has been at and watched Tiger win all 15 of his major championships. He was on the show to talk about what is the future for Tiger Woods and will he even play another major. Adi Savir, the press conference, invite only to talk about moving to Moana Pacifica. LBP with TMG, we were positive with Twisel's Matt Gunn. Episode 93 of the ATM podcast. Mark Watson, always forthright, always very opinionated, never afraid to back away from any issue that is on the sporting agenda. We did all of that. Plus, played, of course, what is more chance of happening, and you'll get to hear some, if not most of all, in the podcast in the next 45 minutes. We begin the show and the podcast the same way every single day. I say, tablets in hand, gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Le Tour de France. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Another Tour de France and another brilliant win for the world's number 1 cyclist right now, Tadej Pogačar. That's his 3rd in 5 years. So the big question around cycling always remains, is it clean? And how can we ever be sure? Now, call me cynical. I prefer to describe my attitude as real, but I'll always have doubts. I will always have doubts. And that's because I've come through the very dark days where drugs and drug cheats were rampant. And it was worse than that because the actions of these people were continually covered up by the athletes themselves and the administrators. From Ben Johnson through the worst of the Tour de France, Lance Armstrong, Marion Jones, Barry Bonds, the Chinese swimmers, the full Russian Olympic team, where the government sponsored, authorised and promoted systematic statewide doping in defiance of every moral and ethical principle ever known to sport. Well, since Og and Zorg first played Biff the Rock. And I do wonder and seriously question, how can all of these athletes, the sprinters, the swimmers, the cyclists, be going so much faster than those who years ago were caught and convicted as drug cheats? And yes, there's improved nutrition and diet and equipment and sports science. But here we sit in 2024 and FloJo still holds the 100 and 200 metre Olympic and world sprint record set in 1988. And she never tested positive. And neither did Lance Armstrong. Let's remember that. Never tested positive. Neither did Marion Jones. Neither did Barry Bonds. Now, I do believe that the authorities do their very best and they are vigilant and they rigorously test. But does that then also mean everyone is clean? No. And when those that get caught red-handed, like the Russians, face no penalty except being allowed to compete wearing a different tracksuit top, then it is absolutely right and proper to always question and always view with a cynical bent on whether or not the war on drugs is being won. Will it succeed? Will it ever succeed? As for cycling's Tour de France, yeah, I'll always remain a little suspicious. And I'll always go back to the age-old adage. The Tour de France is won at night. That's the quote. That has always been the quote. And when you look at the times and the performances and the fact that these athletes never have a bad day, 21 days on tour, I don't know. something doesn't smell quite right.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The platform.
Thank you, Martin. I'll start off with some rugby because, of course, that is the sport that we love the most in this country. Moana Pacifica believe that signing All Blacks star Ardie Savea will be, quote, a game changer and will strengthen the future of that Super Rugby franchise. Sir Michael Jones described it as Christmas coming early and saying it further legitimises and validates everything we've dreamed of and worked for in creating this platform. Platform. That being Moana Pacifica. Ex-All Blacks hooker Dane Coles has joined the Wellington Lions coaching staff in the NPC. He'll work under head coach Orlando Sowakai. That's good news for Dane, good news for Wellington as well. England's most capped rugby player Ben Youngs has revealed he underwent heart surgery after collapsing during an open training session. Though he's on the mend, he seems to be all good. He hopes to be fit for the new English club rugby season, which starts in mid-September. The track at the Stade de France for the Paris Olympics has been revealed. It's the colour purple.
Okay.
Why? The big part of the job in making it the colour purple was to come up with a track that was different from what there had been in the past and to maintain a creative approach. That's how it's been described.
We were at that stadium about half a dozen times during the Rugby World Cup. I'm just trying to figure out where the hell have they put the track?
I think there already was one.
Was there?
I think so.
So was the seating temporary, was it?
No, well, maybe it was.
It looked bloody concrete to me, pal. Have they carved out some of the seats? It didn't look big enough to put a running track in, did it? Did you think?
I don't know. I actually can't remember. I can remember what the seats looked like. I can remember the curvature around the top, which was similar to the Emirates Stadium for Arsenal.
It really was.
Very good stadium. Sticking with the Olympic Games, many athletes, teams, officials, government department officials and administrators absolutely reaping the benefits of their jobs. Journalists as well have touched down in Paris ahead of the Olympic Games starting later this week. And apparently on almost every street corner in the big city, there is a police officer waiting. Big police presence. Well, that's not a shock at all. Cycling news. A matter of days after winning the Tour de France, Slovenian Tadej Pogačar has pulled out of the Paris Olympic Games due to, quote, extreme fatigue. Not shocked by that at all. Golfing news. Bryson DeChambeau will team up with Donald Trump for a round of golf after inviting the former US president and the one who's hoping to be the next US president onto his YouTube channel. I don't know if I'd be doing that if I was Bryson DeChambeau. I don't know, teaching yourself to Donald Trump. Aston Martin have begun testing the new hypercar with which they will return to Le Mans in 2025. Just to tell you what, look at pictures of this on the BBC Sport main page. It looks like a spaceship. LeBron James will be the flag bearer for the United States at the Olympic Games. It's been confirmed. He also played a big role in the USA beating Germany in London in an Olympic Games warm-up. Geez, they nearly lost to South Sudan the other day, so a win for the USA there, or I guess better results is key. And Aston Villa have completed the signing for Everton's Amadou Onana. £50 million they've paid for this man, and I saw some tweets about this. Everton fans are stoked to see him go, so well done, Aston Villa. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
The platform.
Rugby, the All Blacks, 3 tests up and 1. Positive start to the 14-match season. Razor, very happy with that. Win. Yeah, all ticks in the book. Where are we at exactly? Well, the All Black legend Murray Mexted came on to discuss with particular reference to the loose forward trios, but just generally looking at the team and our options going into Argentina and then on to the biggest test of all, which is South Africa. Let's look at the loose forwards, because obviously this is your fundamental area of expertise. And the thing that you've drummed into me over a couple of decades talking to you, and I repeat back to you ad nauseum, is combinations and also the individual jobs complementing each other. And I'll add to that also the relationship between your number 9 and your number 8. So who we saw Papali'i at 7, we saw Ardie at 8, we saw Samipeni Finau come in at 6. And then, of course, you now add into the mix Ethan Blackadder, who played 7 against Fiji, made a good account of himself. Does he play 7 or 6? He adds that line-out option mix. You've got Sam Cane coming back, and let's not forget how outstanding he was at the World Cup, and you were there like I was as well. And that game against Ireland especially, he was absolutely brilliant. Well, a fully fit Sam Cane, to me, remains the best number 7 in the country. But I stand to be corrected here. I'm looking at rejigging that loose forward trio also, because I didn't think Samipeni stepped up in the way we wanted to him against England. He wasn't the enforcer that Jerome was for the All Blacks. But then again, that position takes development, like Shannon Frizzell did. But your thoughts on this, because we do have a number of names now, and I'm not sure who the best loose forward trio is, but I would like to bring Sam Cane back.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things there, Martin. You've asked me a lot of different questions.
I know.
I'll try and peel them off one at a time. I think we have to understand today that, and it always has been actually, it's about ball possession, how much possession we've got. So the most crucial area in the game where you compete for possession is in the air, aerial possession we call it, eh?
Yep.
So that's kick-offs, that's kicks, and general play, line-outs, etc. So you really need two specialist aerial possession players in those loose forward trio, because if you look at history, in the immediate past history for the last maybe 20 years or 30 years, that is the case. You have to have at least one loose forward who is really, really good in the air and really tall, probably two. So I'm saying, well, look, we're not an also-ran team. We want to be number one in the world. So we need two. We need two specialist aerial possession players in your loose forward trio. And Finau's the only one that's big enough at this stage, because the other players are all under, they're all 190s really. So there's an issue there. I think Finau will come through with time. Remember, he's only had a couple of tests, and it looks to me like he's got the ruggedness and the toughness, and he's big boy. So that's a good start. But really, when you look at Blackadder, as I've said on your program before, I think he's a specialist open side flanker. I don't think he's a 6 or an 8. He could play there, but I think he's an open side flanker. And obviously, Razor thought that, and he played him in the weekend, and he played really, really well. You've still got to have the hunter and gatherer, and that's what he is. His work rate is huge. Sam Cane is similar. His work rate is huge. Those two players are specialist open side flankers. So there's a lot of sorting out to be done there, and nobody knows what's going to happen. But, one thing we do know is that if Artie had some support as far as aerial possession is concerned, then he's, probably the best in the world at number 8. So we're smiling in that regard. And I think we've got a lot of contenders at 7 and 6. But I'm not sure in 12 months' time whether all those guys will be still contenders. They'll have to find more players with a bit more size and a bit more aerial ability. So that's my view there.
In terms of playing South Africa, if you had to pick the three loose forwards to run on against South Africa, and you can pick one on the bench, who are those players and what positions?
Yeah, well, I can't even answer that question because, you've got to have, as I said, you've got to have these two guys that compete in the air for ball, because South Africa have got 4 players that compete in the air for ball, and they're all big men, and bigger than ours generally. So therefore, 2 of those loose forward positions have to be, a minimum of probably 195 or something like that, of Finau's size. And that's what we had. That's what we had for years, didn't we, with Kieran Reid? And so we had 2 then. But anyway, so to answer that question, bloody hard. I think that Blackadder would probably be my open side flanker, but Cane also fits the bill there. I like the future potential of Blackadder. The more he plays in that open side hunter and gatherer role, the better he'll get. But you've got to have 2 specialist open side flankers, because that's a hard position to play, and there's a lot of attrition. So I think both those 2 guys will be in the starting lineup or the squad that's named. And then you've got to look at number 8. Artie wraps up one of those places, and then there's about 4 or 5 really good contenders for the others. But it's anybody's pick at the moment, and I couldn't do that at the moment.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full. Couple of rugby things other than the All Blacks to talk about. Ardie Savea. Couple of things about this. Moana Pacifica was set up, I thought, to promote Tongan and Samoan players and develop them to a stage where they were ready to play international rugby for those countries. So is that still the case, or has that been thrown out the window? Because now the All Blacks can pick players from Moana Pacifica, which I thought the whole reason of setting that franchise side up was that the All Blacks weren't allowed to go near those players, because it was set up because we've spent decades stealing, whatever you like to call it, developing those players from those countries and never really given a hell of a lot back. It was never set up so that the All Blacks can poach players from that team, even though we're not poaching one. I mean, he is an All Black already, but you see what I mean when I'm saying that? The other thing was, did Ardie Savea approach or negotiate with any other Super Rugby franchises? I've heard a whisper that he did. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but I'm just throwing it out there. And if he did, what was the upshot of those negotiations? Were Moana Pacifica the only team that he was talking to? Was that the only other team that he wanted to go to other than the Hurricanes? Or were there other franchises involved? And then you look at the money side of it and you think, well, okay, it's obviously going to cost MP quite a bit of money. Do they have that money? Where does that money come from? Last year they were out of money. We were told that, or last season rather. I mean, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a bums on seats idea, and I think it's a needle mover for them, and hopefully it also means that it attracts other players. But these are all relevant questions, and they're all questions that I think deserve answers, and none of them were asked last night. The other thing, before we go to the news, was hearing Mark Robinson, CEO of New Zealand Rugby, with Mike Hosking this morning. And again, I'd never criticised Mike Hosking. I worked with him for a long time. He's a brilliant broadcaster and everything else. I just wonder whether he was underprepared for this interview, because the way that he asked the questions was unlike him. Normally when he interviews a politician, he goes hard. But it was just such a soft interview.
What we're seeing through content, the influences there, you'd have probably seen images of, NFL franchises and athletes all around the place. And certainly the engagement through all of that off-field stuff was really impressive. We also did a lot of work laying some foundations with, wider New Zealand Inc. It was great to see people like Tim Brown up there. Anthony Moss is doing a great job as a general counsel to the to the west coast of the states, and talked about different ideas around how we connect the game in there and think about the broader interests in New Zealand as well. So, I myself spent a couple of days up at Stanford and around Silicon Valley talking to some people about what the future could look like down the west coast with regards to rugby and other opportunities. So all in all, we packed a heap of stuff into the week, and we had a great event on Friday night as well. So we're pretty pleased.
Brilliant. So you got pissed on Friday night. You shook hands, you made plans, you had a few meetings and greetings, you exchanged some ideas with particular reference back to New Zealand. It was all very exciting, and the West Coast and the East Coast, and you bumped into Tim Brown and Anthony Moss, and I'm not sure that those two guys moved the needle in any which way at all in terms of rugby in America. If I was going to talk to people about rugby in America, I mean, no disrespect to those guys, but those two names don't leap out at me as two guys that I think, they're hugely influential. We had a lot of feedback. We extended and established relationships. We had a helpful chat with World Rugby, seaboards, East and West Coast, and Silicon Valley, and
what do the nerds in Silicon Valley know about rugby?
Well, I'm just sitting there going, and you went over there. Look, let's be honest about it. This is to fulfill obligations to Silver Lake. As part of the deal, all the money we've spent, you take a team over there. Did this promotional exercise make a media splash at all in any major market in the United States? No. Did it register anywhere in the news anywhere? No. You talk a lot of social media interaction. Well, Mark, you put all of that out yourself. You employ a whole lot of people to put a whole lot of social media posts out saying how great it is. So all you're doing is looking at the stuff that your own company produces. I mean, just a whole lot of management speak, promotional guff, cliches, strap lines, and just more marketing PR stuff. ATM, episode 93. That's Apologise to Me. It's the Mark Watson podcast. I love Watto. He is forthright. He is honest with his opinions. We have issues to discuss. Another Very highly paid member added to the New Zealand Rugby management team. Warriors season over. And how do you assess this team? 8 wins, 6 wins, 16 wins. And what are we going to finish with this year? We're on 7, maybe 9. So what does that say? Does that say 3 failing years out of 4? An outlier last year? Or are we actually improving? I mean, so many questions about the Warriors. Plenty to talk about with our man Watto. New Zealand Rugby have hired another performance pathway manager. This time it is a role that we are told is for player safety, player welfare, and I'm sure it is a very worthy and very valid position, and it is a woman by the name of Tony Grimshaw, highly qualified. There will be a lot of worthy reports being written. There will be a lot of email trees and a lot of meetings attended. And this salary is probably well in excess of $100,000. But I'm an old school guy, Mark, and I just sit there at times like this and go, yes, I know that, that this is obviously a key position in management in New Zealand Rugby, or is it a government department that just continues to employ people? There's no money for South Canterbury to go to a Ranfurly Shield Challenge to Hawke's Bay, but there's money to hire yet another person to write reports and sit at meetings. It just doesn't seem to equate to me, mate.
Yeah, look, and nothing against Tony Grimshaw. Congratulations on her picking up the role. Brilliant. But look, the official title, and I saw this on LinkedIn and it just infuriated me. The chief, so this is the role that this highly qualified lady's clearly picked up. Chief People, Safety and Wellbeing Officer. So I'm not even sure that's necessarily related to the players. It could just be within the internal infrastructure that is now the corporation that is New Zealand Rugby, Martin. And you're sitting there going, well, look, this would be a minimum of $150,000 salary. And I just sit there and go, so you actually need somebody in there for safety and wellbeing. Well, if that's the case, then maybe you need to look at your level of management, the style of leadership, and maybe make some changes there. It's a bit like, you get the phone call and or a corporate speaker gets a phone call. Oh, can you come in and do a motivational speech? So you want me to come in and motivate your workers? Why don't you sack your senior management team? Because clearly they're not doing a particularly bloody good job if you need someone externally to come in and get them motivated. And and we discussed this, but that South Canterbury not being able to go and afford to actually challenge for the Ranfurly Shield and Hawke's Bay, so have to turn that opportunity down. I know, talking to Steve Devine and former All Black who does some coaching at Ponsonby Rugby Club, and the lighting at some of these clubs, the quality of the grounds where they're actually scared some of their under 10s and under 11s might drown in some of the puddles because there's just not the drainage. And these are the real issues that rugby's facing at a grassroots level. Here we are, corporate New Zealand, corporate rugby, employing a Chief People Safety and Wellbeing Officer. Yeah. I mean, dear, oh dear, oh dear. They just simply do not have their priorities, Martin. And look, we also just touched last week, didn't we? Like, I'm not convinced about this whole All Black management setup, this coaching by committee. And I was going through this with Justin Marshall, but I've also just found out here, just quickly to run through the level of management that's involved in the All Blacks. Remember, every one of these is picking up a major salary, while the rest of grassroots rugby and rugby around the country is bleeding, just looking for any means of staying afloat. And we're talking about major unions. So you've got Scott Robertson as head coach. You've got Jason Ryan, assistant coach. Leon McDonald, assistant coach. You've got Scott Hansen, assistant coach. Jason Holland, assistant coach. Tamati Allison there as contact skills coach. You've got Sir Wayne Smith as performance coach. Then you throw in David Hill as another kicking coach. You've then got Corey Flynn coming in as a specialist in terms of throwing into the line-out coach. You've got Al Beaton, assistant performance analyst. John Gardner, assistant performance analyst. Kerry Evans, head of leadership. Nick Gill, head of performance. Adam Hay, performance scientist. Martin Swan, doctor. Carl McDonald, lead physio. Teresa Tamaki, assistant physio. Kat Darry, dietitian. Paul McLaughlin, team manager. Megan Compain, commercial manager. James Iverson, logistics manager. Matt Manakia, I'm not sure is anymore, but communications manager. Then you've got another 2 or 3 positions. This is just associated with the All Blacks. These are people who travel with this All Black team. And I just sit there and go, and then we sit there and and we talk about these guys being great coaches because they're successful. Look at the resource they've got available to them, man. But look at the sheer amount of money that has been put into aspects of New Zealand rugby at the greater good. I just scratched my head, mate. It's just too much. It's just too many, mate.
Warriors lose. Is it season over, Mark? I know mathematically there's a possibility, but I don't indulge in this, not in the NRL, mate, which is a brutal competition where when you're 3-4 wins outside the 8, there's 6 games left and you're having to rely on everything else. I called it yesterday, and look, and it's not a big, bold call. They're not making the 8. That's it. It's done.
No, they're not. No, they're not making the 8. I think that they will just continue to win 1, lose 1, draw 1. I think that's how the rest of the season will play out, Martin. I think you highlighted that yesterday. I'm in agreement with you. Look, they've made some mistakes this year. I think they made mistakes by being pig-headed around Sean Johnson. I think they made some big mistakes in being pig-headed around where Roger Tuivasa-Sheck plays. I think there's been, and it'll be interesting to see whether he recognises it and makes changes, but I'm not sure that Andrew Webster is everything that he's cracked up to be. I'm not sure that he is yet to be the complete coach.
Well, it's only his second season as head coach, so let's cut him some slack. What I want to see from him now, mate, is I want to see him take absolute full control over everything of the team, and that's recruitment, that's selection, that's getting rid of players, promoting players, the whole lot. Nothing to do with anyone else in the management. It's got to be him, like Ivan Cleary does for Penrith. And that's where I think the Warriors can go forward. Trust in Andrew Webster. Let him be that guy.
Yeah, let him be that guy, but he's got to be ruthless. As I've said in the past, mate, we need a coach, not a friend. And I think it's always hard. We've had this discussion ourselves, Martin. It's always very, very hard when you have interpersonal relationships with players to sometimes make the tough decisions. But the difference between the good coaches and the great coaches, they can do it. So Alex Ferguson to Manchester United, case in point. I think Jurgen Klopp did a great job at Liverpool in terms of saying, hey, Mo Salah, sorry, mate, you're coming off, or Mo, you're not playing today. As hard as that is, your biggest stars, you joke with these guys, you hang out with your families sometimes, but you've got to make the tough calls. You've got to be big enough to call it. I think really a sign of this club will be what they do with Sean Johnson. I think if they're serious, they cut him loose. His time's up. We've got to move on. We've got to look in a different direction. It's not about, well, yeah, but Sean he's a mark, he's sort of our brand athlete. He sells a lot of shirts. He puts a lot of bums on seats. He's a wonderful ambassador. I'm sorry, I'm not into any of that. There's only one currency when it comes to this, and that is winning.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, Lachlan, roughly a minute or so. Maybe we'll go overboard, maybe 90 seconds on each when this happens. Well, we move on to the next topic. Dane Coles joining Wellington's NPC coaching staff. Well, that gets the big tick as far as I'm concerned. I like Coles, you like him a lot. Choose your number 1 loose forward trio with the All Blacks. Is Le Tour clean? That's a yes or no answer, Lachlan. Sky TV didn't send their presenters to San Diego. They sent a couple of management executives instead. And Sky TV are not sending the presentation team to South Africa. They're going to be calling those test matches off the tube in Mount Wellington. That's where Sky TV are at the moment. They pour a hell of a lot of money into a hell of a lot of programs that make no money at all. And as a viewer, I want those guys there because when they're there, they provide a much better experience when they're on the ground. But Sky TV would rather send a couple of fancy-dancy management execs. Are you happy about that as a Sky customer? Is the new Ardy case evidence that, yes, in fact, New Zealand Rugby are now selecting players who play overseas, Lachlan, yes or no? The polls are through to the final. They host the Premiership final, and it's the Mystics playing the Titans Saturday. And then the Mystics are playing the Tactics, the Titans. Did I say the Titans? Tactics, and on Saturday, and then the final is on Sunday week. Yes or no? Is Le Tour clean?
Well, I want to say yes.
Same.
But, like a lot of sports, baseball was one of them. Athletics, specifically sprinting, because of their checkered... Swimming, because of their checkered pasts and little flare-ups...
Weightlifting.
...of issues in the last maybe 20 years. I don't think it is, no.
Well, we just had a South African rugby player test positive for a banned substance, right?
We did.
It is rife through all sports, and don't ever think for a second it's not. Sky TV. No presenters in South Africa. This is just low-rent, cheap-ass BS, isn't it? It really is.
Well, it's broadcasters not having the money to send their staff over, their callers over. That's simply it. They're just trying to save money. But yet they will send over their own sort of executives.
Yeah, a couple of management execs went on the donut and the Mark Robinson shaking hands, making plans, trip to San Diego. And I'm damn sure that there'll be a couple of them in South Africa. But why not send the commentators?
Yeah.
You know, the viewing experience is poorer because of, isn't it?
The thing is
I've called it off the tube before. I've been in these things, okay? And you're sitting there, you're getting Atmos in your headphones and things, but you're sitting in a room like this, you and me sitting next to each other looking at a TV screen like we are at home. What we want, when you were in France at the World Cup, you were there in the media enclosure where all of these broadcasters were beside us calling games. How different was it? Apart from light years difference, right?
Well, it is. I mean, I've seen, because back at News Talk ZB, NZME as a whole, their rugby commentary, can't speak for the All Blacks games, but absolutely their Super Rugby, their NPC, their netball commentary is off the tube. It's not in person. Mm-hmm. Some of the Blues games, I think, are. The All Blacks ones are. I'll be honest, as a viewer, when I'm watching it on TV, try and put myself in the shoes of a layman, I can't actually tell the difference. But I guess there's little specific technical things that you can pick up on that you go, oh, okay, oh, yeah, that makes sense, oh, that makes sense. One of them being, and this is 101 idiocy from Sky, Justin Marshall's on your pre-match panel with Kirsty Stanaway, Honey Hidemi, and Sir John Kirwan, and they're all, it seems, clearly in Auckland, because they're in the Sky Sports studio, and then Justin Marshall's commentating.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
So you don't have to be an idiot to work it out.
They're making no.
Sorry, you don't have to be a brainiac to work it out. You know, an idiot can work it out. That's my point. But yeah, it's disappointing. Yeah.
Pick your loose forward trio right now to play Argentina. On form, everyone available.
Let me get my scrapbook, my notebook out. A lot of wisdom in this book. Now, I've written down all the possible selections within reason. One of them is actually not currently in the squad, who can play in the loose forward trio. Summer Penifino, Ethan Blackadder, Sam Cane, Luke Jacobson, Dalton Papali'i, Ardie Savea, Tupu Vai can play blindside. He did at the World Cup last year. Wallace Satiti, Scott Barrett, Hoskins Satutu not in the squad. And I guess if you're throwing Hoskins in there, you should probably throw Braden Yosse and Peter Lakai in there as well. They had breakout seasons.
Pick your...
My three would probably... I really want Blackadder in there, but because Murray Mexted is the oracle when it comes to loose forwards in rugby, I agree that there needs to be a tall man in there, so I want Summer Penifino to be in there. But I also want Sam Cane to be in there because I think he's our best open side. I don't know.
See, I think what we agree on is that Dalton Papali'i is not the number 7.
There, no.
No, that's right.
In terms of starting and your one off the bench, so your 4 game day options, I don't have Luke Jacobson, I don't have Dalton Papali'i.
No, so I've got Sam Cane, Blackadder, Samapeni, and Ardie.
Those would be my 4 as well.
Okay.
Just who start? I tell you what, this would not go down well with some people. I'd consider benching Ardie Savea purely on size.
Oh my God!
Purely on size.
Ardie, my God! All of a sudden, I just thought, my God, you're actually speaking sense, and then you come out with that. Speaking of Ardie Savea, is this clause where he gets another sabbatical in 2026, is this now evidence that yes, in fact, New Zealand Rugby are selecting players who play overseas? What is the difference apart from the name of the country he plays in? So if he wasn't playing in Japan and he took a sabbatical in France, we then pick him to play in the All Blacks that same year.
It's who they're contracted to, who the players are contracted to. So when you're off playing overseas, so Richie Mo'unga is signed to, I can't remember the name of is it Toyota for Blitz he's with? Or is it, no, it's Todd Blackadder's team. What's the name of his team again?
No, mate, I don't follow it closely enough. I don't care about it enough.
Someone Viking?
Whatever.
Anyway, Richie Mo'unga is signed to that team. Ardie Savea is signed to New Zealand Rugby, who have had some agreement in place with the Japanese side that he was playing for to have a sabbatical there. So it's almost like a loan, I think, in what a loan is in football. In world football.
But we're still selecting him after he's been playing
because
overseas.
The sabbatical's over and he's no longer under contract with that team. His spell with that team has ended.
Sure, this is just word salad to me.
Now, I know, I agree, because they are finding loopholes within their own system.
They're not
rewriting anything. They're just working in and around it to please the player.
That's it.
That's what they're doing.
And themselves. So how close are we now to getting to this stage where our players will be allowed to go and play wherever the hell they want and still be available for the All Blacks if they make themselves available? Because that's all this is about. I'm going to play up in the top 14 French competition, but I'm available to play for the All Blacks as soon as that finishes. What is the difference with that and what Ardie's doing? What is the difference?
Yeah, no. It's going to get to the point where they're going to be making so many adjustments or setting up a situation where they are bending over backwards to please the player. But no. It's just a sabbatical. We let them have 4 years off in the Cayman Islands, but that's part of the contract. So he's not playing for the All Blacks for 6 years. Oh, yeah, about that. It's going to get to a point where they have to let them go and
the most
play overseas and be
ridiculous thing
contracted
about
to
all of
another
this
club.
is that our players aren't allowed to go and play for the Australian Super Rugby franchises, and so he's allowed to go and play wherever he wants, up in Japan or wherever it is. That's where it is at the moment. So is Beauden Barrett and the senior players do. But we won't let a guy go and play who perhaps can't get a start-on run for a New Zealand side, can't go and actually play his rugby in Australia, get a start-on run over there where we can see him every week.
But also,
it does not make it.
Well, it doesn't help the competition. It doesn't develop and grow the competitiveness within Super Rugby. But also, one of the issues with the Ardie Savea's got another sabbatical coming up. Another one as part of this contract. He's just completed. Like when Beauden Barrett finished up his sabbatical in 2020, which I can't even remember if it went ahead, it was still many, many years until he had confirmed publicly that he had another one in place. This one's taken 5 minutes for Ardie to say, no, I'm going back to Japan.
Yeah, they don't really want to stay and play in New Zealand. I think that's the message. They want to cash in and make their money elsewhere. And the only thing New Zealand Rugby's ever had as a hold to keep them here is that All Black jersey. And now it is bending so much. It's only a matter of when it breaks, people. And our players are going to be like the South Africans, and they're going to be playing all over the world, wherever they like. And that's where we're going to be cobbling our All Black team from. Le Tour de France. Amazing performance, again, by Pogačar to win. So over the last 5 years, only 2 guys have won Le Tour. He's now pulled out of the Olympics. He says he's absolutely shattered. They're riding faster than they've ever ridden on the Tour. And I know that everything is improving, including the diets, the nutrition, the equipment, fitness levels, all of that kind of stuff. But it is a Tour that is also tainted, and we all know why. Because it has involved drug cheats for as long as anyone can remember. So I celebrate the sporting excellence. I love the Tour. It is a promotional video for France. It's like watching a tourist video. It's brilliant. But there's always that question in the back of the mind. Can we be absolutely sure that the athletes are clean on Le Tour? Adam Becket from Cycling Weekly, who was following the whole schmozzle all around France for 21 days, joined us on the program. Adam, another Tour de France over. Did the right guy win it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Tadej Pogačar is, I think, without a shadow of a doubt, the best bike rider in the world right now. So, yeah, I think we can say the best man won.
Was it a great race?
Yes and no. I mean, can it be a great race when one person wins 6 stages and wins by that much time? But it was an exciting race, despite the kind of domination of one person. It felt like it was in the balance, probably falsely, for quite a long time, and then when the coup de grace happened, I mean, there was only one winner, really.
So he won in 2020, 2021, and then Vingegaard won in 2022, 2023, and now he's bounced back. So these two have won the last 5. So who is the better rider out of the 2 of them?
Well, it's a live question. You would say probably at the moment Tadej Pogačar. Tadej Pogačar is certainly more versatile. He wins one-day races outside of the Tour de France. He's won the Giro d'Italia this year as well. He wins basically wherever he goes. Whereas Jonas Vingegaard, as good as he is his best performances ever have always come at the Tour de France. But I suppose we'll have to wait for next year when hopefully both of them are properly fit for the actual answer to come clear.
So what are you implying by that Jonas wasn't?
Yes, he was caught up in a crash in April at a race in Spain called Israel Basque Country, where he broke almost every rib, punctured both his lungs, and kind of he said he almost died. I mean, we don't know, if that's medically true, but he was certainly in hospital for 12 days, I think he said. So yeah, he didn't have the ideal preparation for this year's race. That's for sure.
Adam Becket is the news editor for Cycling Weekly. We're talking about Le Tour de France. Significant that he is the first man, Pogačar, since Pantini to win the Giro and Le Tour in the same year. So that's since 1998. It's more than just significance, isn't it? That's a hell of an achievement. Why has it taken so long?
Because, well, only 8 people have ever done ever. So it's not something that happens often in the history of the sport. But it's taken so long because the rigors of modern cycling is such that people tend to focus on one big thing a season. Pogačar is different. He's been different throughout his career in that he can target multiple things for a season and be good at all of them. This year is already one of the great seasons anyone has ever ridden. He won 6 stages at the Giro and the overall, and he won 6 stages at the Tour de France and the overall. Something like that hasn't happened in generations. But in terms of the Giro Tour double itself, it's just really difficult. Cycling is a fatiguing sport, and people don't train to do 2 Grand Tours in a season, basically.
Adam, how fast are these guys going compared to, say, when Lance Armstrong was riding?
That's a good question. They are a lot of the time they're climbing faster than ever. They're riding faster than ever. In real terms, it's probably a few kilometers an hour faster, but that's a lot of difference when you're kind of in the upper ends of kind of 30s and low 40s. Tadej Pogačar this year broke the climbing records on multiple mountain stages, including the Col de Galibier on stage 4, the first stage you won of this year's race. So they are going faster than ever. Compared to Lance Armstrong, that's kind of a different level of comparison, I suppose.
And the inevitable questions asked to him at the post-match press conferences and things about how clean the sport is, and obviously it's undergoing the most rigorous testing of probably any sport in the world. And you've got dietary improvements, nutritional improvements, and obviously the equipment gets better and better. It just seems remarkable, doesn't it, that these guys these days are they can anyone guarantee that everyone is absolutely clean, given the fact that they're riding faster than the biggest drug cheat of them all?
No, I wouldn't bet my life that the sport is completely clean, but they all undergo. They're under the most scrutiny of any sport I can think of, and we just have to kind of hope and trust that the testing is working and that anti-doping agencies are doing their job. Equipment is better than ever. They're kind of training better than ever. Nutrition is better than ever. All of these things do add up. I wouldn't say I don't trust anyone, but people are welcome to make up their own minds.
It's time, Lachlan.
We need to talk.
Your favourite game.
We need
Now, we've
to
had a few
talk.
variations on your favourite game, but your favourite game always was?
What has more chance of happening?
I give you 2 scenarios.
Next!
You tell me out of the 2 what has more chance of happening. The Warriors do make the 8. Mathematically, they still are in with the chance. They win all of their remaining games. That would take them to 31 to 31 points, something like that. Or Ethan Blackadder starts versus Argentina. What is more chance of happening?
Ethan Blackadder starts.
Trick question, this one, Lachlan, because Scott Robertson, if his squad is fit, is not going to make any changes from that took the field against England versus Argentina. He's just not going to. I don't believe he will.
Well, he's not going to, or you don't think he will?
Well, I don't think he will, because...
Okay, so that doesn't mean it's...
But it's harder to get out of the All Blacks. And look, what has Dalton Papali'i done wrong? And you've got to ask that question. If Ethan Blackadder comes in, he comes in for Papali'i.
I wouldn't look at it like that. I'd turn it over and say, what has Dalton Papali'i done right and well enough that's better than what Ethan Blackadder has done in the black jumper?
Do you think that they've been waiting for Blackadder to get back to full fitness? Because he was added to the All Blacks. I've always thought that it's not that he's a favourite son, but I've always thought he's one of those guys that if he's fully fit, they're going to pick him.
Yes, well, because he had a string of tests in 2021. Yeah, 2021.
God, he's been around a while there.
And he played... Well, mate, he's nearly 30.
Yeah, but he's just
he went to school with
played that much.
I know, he went to school with my flatmate.
Okay,
down
but he's
south.
been injured so often, the poor bugger.
I know, that's the thing. But he had a run of games in 2021 and played really well. Really, really well at blindside.
3 years ago. All right, well, what has more chance of happening? Warriors make the 8 or Blackadder gets named in the starting lineup first?
Blackadder gets named in the starting lineup. Here's the thing. I'm not saying that's going to happen. What I'm saying is absolutely not happening is the Warriors making the 8.
What is more chance of happening? That to prove you wrong, or Sam Cane is named in the 23?
Sam Cane is named in the 23. That has more chance of happening. The Warriors aren't making the 8,
The Warriors
Martin.
have a mathematical possibility of making
I've
the
heard
8
that
in a
before.
miracle.
28
Tiger Woods
times
was
in the
never
last
winning the
29
Masters in
years.
2019, was he?
Stop it. You can't compare this Warriors team. How many players, by the way, in that
That's a
team
bit of
have
a
won a
long-
premiership? How many players? Actually, do you know the answer to this?
In the Warriors?
In the current Warriors side, how many players have won a premiership?
Tohu?
Yeah, that's one. Off the top of my head, there's one more. Off the top of my head.
Capewell. No, because Broncos
3, okay.
choked it.
Capewell won one with Penrith.
Oh, did he?
The other one I was thinking of was Roger. He won one with the Roosters.
Oh, there you go. Next! What is more chance of happening? The Warriors do make the 8, or the All Blacks beat Argentina 2-0 in the 2 tests we played them?
Oh, the All Blacks won both tests. They're both in New Zealand. And we're a better team.
Yes, but they've won in New Zealand before, so it's not the gimme that it used to be.
No, but I don't think that was a sign of things to come. I think that was a bit of a one-off.
Remember, when did we lose that test?
I don't remember the month or the date, but I remember when it was in relation to the schedule. It was 2 weeks after the Cape Town.
That's right. It was 2 weeks after we'd turned it around in Cape Town after getting belted in Nelspruit.
Yeah.
When I thought it was over for the All Blacks, I thought that was it. We just aren't physically strong enough to beat that team. And in the end, we overpowered them with 14 on the field, remember?
In the last 10 minutes.
The last 10 minutes.
Beauden Barrett got yellow carded.
And then we came back and we just played the worst All Black test probably in the last decade.
It was the most...
And who did they bring on for 10 seconds at the end?
Stephen Perifetta.
Was it 10?
To
It
make
was
his
just,
debut.
It was just, we just couldn't do anything.
We had a chance to at least tie the game because we were down 7, and we had a line out, which all going to plan would have led to a driving maul towards the try line in the corner. And what happened? Cody Taylor stuffed up the throw.
Bolts the line out, yeah. And it was one of those weird games where you just sat
You
there
just
the
sat there
whole time.
going, what's going on?
Exactly.
I thought we were back.
We losing
What's
this?
happening?
What is more chance happening? The Warriors make the 8, or Tiger retires from professional golf before the next major championship, which is the Masters next year?
What has more chance of happening?
What has more chance of
Tiger
happening?
retires before the Masters next year. Something could happen. He could lose both his legs.
Well, no, I
Or
don't.
arms.
I mean, but, to do that is...
Or hands. I don't know.
To do that is him admitting that his golf career is over.
Here's the thing. The Warriors are not making the 8.
Look, why are you so adamant about this? You don't know that for a fact.
How many wins? Excuse me. How many points have they got?
At the moment,
19, isn't it?
19 hard-earned points, Lachlan.
Hard earned. 19
Yes.
out of a possible. How many? What's 18 times 2 plus 4? 30, 40. 19 out of 40.
Okay, we're below, and we're way below the 500. In actual fact, we are, when you look at the 8 by 24, we're
You're 3 wins outside the top 8.
3 wins
Because you're
outside.
5 points off 8.
Okay,
so if you
with 6
won
minutes to go.
3
All right,
games,
okay,
you'd be in the
well,
top
make
8.
your bloody-
The point is,
point.
they've got to win all 6 and hope that those teams in and around 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, around there, drop 3 games.
Okay, all right.
Is that happening?
Okay, so far it's 4-0 against the Warriors. What is more chance happening? The Warriors make the 8, or every single cyclist in the Tour de France is clean. I win this one, ladies and gentlemen.
Every
single cyclist in the Tour de France is clean, and not using drugs.
There is more chance that every single cyclist in the Tour de France
get
is
off the
clean.
grass, mate.
There is much more chance. And I'll tell you why. Because we don't know that any of them are actually doping at the moment. Nothing's confirmed. This is speculation.
As Adam said,
that is
they
speculation.
are racing 4 or 5 Ks an hour faster than the fastest drug
That is
cheat.
speculation. The human body has advanced.
It's
It does
incredible, isn't it?
extraordinary things.
Look, and the tyres are fatter, and the shoes, and you pedal faster.
Muscle
and
density. I don't know. What are the proper terms?
LBP with TMG every Tuesday. Let's be positive. Our man Matt Gunn joins us out of Twizel. So much to be positive. Oh, there isn't really, is there? I mean, there's our Warriors and his doggies both lost. At least the Wallabies beat Georgia. And Lando Norris. How to be positive at the end of a Formula One race in the pits when your boss has just said to you, move over and let the other guy win? Yeah? From Twizel, Matt Gunn. Let's be positive. How can we be about the Warriors season being over? I suppose if you want to be positive, mate, you can say, well, mathematically, there's still a possibility. But I've written that off already because the way that this competition goes, if you win 8 games and lose 8, probably in the next 8 games, you're going to win 4 and lose 4. That's what I'm reckoning on. I think the Warriors will get another couple of wins, but it won't be enough to get them in there.
I think that if you try and put a positive spin on the Warriors season, that you'd be a bit of a joker because We came off last year where they were just flying high. Everyone was in love with the Wars. They're playing semi-final football. They're not far away from being in a grand final. And then show up this year, and they're the new Bulldogs. I mean, they're inconsistent. They're up and down. They look good at times. But if they don't sit back and say this has been an absolute disaster of a season, I mean, what would need to happen for you to think that? From one of the top 4 teams last year sort of thing to... Well, I mean, if worse comes to worse, they could finish near the wooden spoon. It's nothing to be positive about with the Warriors. And the Warriors fans have got every right to be disappointed, Martin. Absolutely.
How do we be positive about your doggies, though? Because if you'd won that game against North Queensland, and you should have, you would have been in 5th spot, tied for 4th, and you would have been going, right, we're absolute sure shot. Now you're in the quagmire that is 7 or 8 teams all scrapping.
Yeah, it's not a great place to be. And, I was pretty confident we'd be playing playoffs football. We didn't look very good on the weekend. We didn't attack quite the way we have in the past. And while we could have won it, technically, missing a couple of kicks, Matt Burton doesn't normally do it. It was a very disappointing win. And now, well, it's absolutely a dogfight. Like, we might get there. And I think we should be top 8 on some of the performances we've had. But isn't it amazing? And as you mentioned about this competition, one loss, and you risk your whole final season. So I tell you what, I'm a little bit nervous about it now, but I think we'll come back, Martin. We'll come back. But
okay.
But look, I tried to start to look at who plays who and how what the odds are.
Yeah,
it's too confusing. Too confusing. It's simply too tight on this table to really come up with some sort of answer as who's going to be in the top 8. Top 3, probably certain, maybe even top 4, but the next 4 spots, they could be anyone. So the last part of the season is going to mean everything.
Well, you play the Broncos next, mate. And they won. And they hadn't won since round 11. And this is just a nasty fixture because if you lose to them, then they are pretty much on the same points as you with 5 or 6 games to go, mate. It's almost like you're playing finals football from now.
Well, I think most teams will be thinking about it as they're playing finals football. Broncos looked very good the other night. And I tell you what, after Origin, Reece Walsh came back and he was like a ball player. He wasn't just like a fullback last week. He's getting better and better, and his speed is something else. So, the Broncos, I mean, that is going to be toss a coin kind of stuff for the Bulldogs. I mean, like you can tell in my voice, I'm waning now.
I know you are, mate. I mean, you were riding down the back straight, mate, with a 5-furlong lead only weeks ago. You were in the finals already. What's happened?
I was looking at top 4. now I'm hoping top 8. I mean, look, it's been too many years from my point of view to have enjoyed any success. So I thought it was going to be this one. Now it still will be.
You're being positive.
Convinced of that.
Okay.
No, it'll be brilliant.
Wallabies beating Georgia, so that's 3 in a row now before you play South Africa. I mean, that's the perfect preparation, I know, even though Georgia got pretty damn close and gave you a hell of a fright on the weekend. Look, is this one of those ones where you're just banking the results and acknowledging the fact that this team is not perfect? It's far from it. You're not going to win the Rugby Championship. We can probably acknowledge that now. But at least you've had 3 wins because it would have been disastrous if he had started and lost games to Wales and Georgia.
Yeah, I was looking at a meme this morning with Schmitty and Eddie Jones, and the meme was really just celebrating the fact that he's 3-0, 100% record. And, well, I mean, you just got to take that as it comes, whether it's Georgia, whether it's Fiji, whether it's whomever else. But the Wallabies are better. They're looking better than they did previous. And, whether or not it's great preparation for South Africa. I mean, I don't know. I'd probably be putting money on South Africa over the Wallabies.
Oh, would you? Would you really? Oh, really? Would you? How much money?
I not much. My TAB account's been cleaned out. I mean, I can't really bet too much. And I've got Lachlan Moore sending me pictures of his TAB account where he's picked 6 winners on the weekend, including the Bulldogs losing, and showing me how much he won. I said, well, you've only won what I lost.
Lando Norris, mate, how do you be positive about this? You get told that you've got to move over and let the other guy win, even though my car's faster, I'm a better driver, I'm trying to chase down Verstappen for the championship, and you're telling me, no, you've got to come second. How do I be positive about coming second?
I don't know how you'd be positive about it, except for the fact that each year they put millions of dollars in their pockets. They work hard, but they get paid well. And at the end of the day, if the boss says, Martin, you're not doing 1 till 4 anymore, you're doing 2 till 6. I mean, you normally just go with what it is, unless you got a better possibility, which he doesn't have. So, this is the life of motorsport. It wouldn't be the first time someone's been asked to step aside to let someone past. And tactically, I think that probably the right result happened given the way they pitted. So, these guys got every right to be upset. But if you watch that Formula One Drive to Survive, you'll see in every episode someone's being given team orders to do something that they may not want to do. That's life in a car.
That's it. What's your choice, mate? Oh, go off and drive somewhere else. No, I'm a Formula One driver. I love the lifestyle. I love I love the pretty girls. I love the money. I love the fame. Well, shut up then and do what you're told, mate. It's that simple. Your name's not Max Verstappen, so yeah.
You imagine what happens if he doesn't pull over.
Well, I mean,
and he just drives on and takes the win himself. I mean, you wouldn't want to be in the office after that, would you?
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable! Incredible!
The Platform.